What the fuck is up, fam of Liberty? And everybody else watching this video who isn't part of the fam of Liberty, who's not following our channel for some inexplicable reason. It's your boy Big Sarge, or the artist formerly known as Admin Tim, founder of the Sons of Liberty. If you're just coming across my channel for the very first time, then let me spell it out for you. Fuck Donald Trump and fuck MAGA traitors. Suck my girthy fat cock, you fucking bootlicking simps who hate America. This channel and its comment sections are not a safe space for bootlicking simps for a wish.com fascist oligarch and a wannabe authoritarian tyrant. You thought we were insufferable and intolerant after 2020? Guess what, motherfuckers? Buckle up. Y'all cocksuckers may have won the election somehow, but that doesn't mean that you're going to steamroll people. Yesterday I mentioned that I shot over half an hour of footage and I wasn't sure how much of it that I was going to be able to fit into a video. So over the next few days, when you see me wearing this brown shirt, this has all been shot the day that the election results were made public. Hot take, it's incredibly close-minded and condescending to be left-leaning and then turn around and be demeaning about, say, people in the southern states, especially if you don't live here. I live in the South, and more specifically, I live in the rural South. I used to live in Atlanta, which is also the South, but is so urban that it may as well not even have the same mentality anymore, even half an hour outside the city. Where I currently live, these are some of the most welcoming people, but what they also are is dirt poor, and they're getting poorer every year. The problem is that they're blaming the wrong people, and for liberals to condescend to them and say, well, the economy's doing great, just pisses them off and makes them not want to listen to anything you ever have to say ever again. They're looking for relief, not some arrogant snobbery. And when a populist candidate comes along and says, yeah, it's tough, I'm going to fix it for you, they're going to believe that. No amount of quoting facts is going to fix that. And when they start believing the guy who says he's going to fix it, even though that dude doesn't give a shit about poor people or fixing anything, and even though that motherfucker had 4 years to fix things the first time and he didn't, and then they'll listen to and tolerate other shit that he says, because in all honesty, we can ignore someone who says illegals coming through the border that I never fixed are the reason why you're poor, as long as that guy still says that he's going to fix our problem with buying groceries and putting gas in the car. If you've never been dirt poor, or in my case, fucking homeless and destitute and hopeless, you can't possibly understand what level of control of fear that has over you. And when some obnoxious asshole comes along and says he's going to help it, it doesn't usually matter what the trade-off is going to be. And when other people sneer down their nose at you because they think you're terrible and that you don't have the same morals as them, it only serves to underscore the point. Never mind the fact that the idiot saying it doesn't understand how tariffs work. Never mind the fact that he's making shit up. Literally none of that shit matters when you're desperately trying to put a roof over your head, food in your kids' bellies, and keep the heat on during the winter. That's the here and now for a lot of people, and I don't think that the Democrats did a good job on their messaging. And as a voter base, talking down to poor people and saying, well, you were lied to, and then cutting them out of the conversation isn't helping you win allies. And I say this as someone who regularly shits on MAGA fuckface ass clown traitors, because there's a certain demographic among them that knows better and doesn't care. And there are triggered vet bros who end up in my comments, and I relish pissing them off. Average Joe Poor, though, doesn't give a shit about my channel and is too busy working to listen to me rant and rave. What I can tell you is that there's an awful lot of white suburban families who are making ends meet who voted for Trump that are gleefully relishing all the angry wailing that they're seeing and hearing. Your beef is with them, not Stewart, who's definitely not like the other people here in the trailer park. And yes, that's a Dead Milkman reference, because how could I resist cutting a rant and not including some sort of obscure musical reference? Liberals and progressives often have a knack for coming across as remarkably condescending to working class voters. We tend to come across too often as finger-wagging elites, disdainful of the religious faith that's really important to millions of people. I see this shit in my comments frequently. I mean, it's one thing to call out hypocrisy in, say, Christianity, but when you're a snooty fucking militant atheist who constantly prattles on and on and on and on about mythical sky daddies, you're not really endearing yourself to anyone but other people exactly like you. That's a huge turnoff to atheists like me, and because of you, I'm actually loath to identify myself as an atheist. Plenty of people on the left are religious, and or we have conservative religious friends and family that we care about and who care about us. I'm using religion as one small example. There are countless others. Now, you're going to ask yourself, where are you going with this, Big Sarge? A lot of Latinos just voted for Trump despite the near constant stream of degrading racist commentary that comes out of Republicans. Why? I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of Hispanic people are people of faith. They're hardworking people from working class backgrounds. And as crazy as it sounds, that whole leopards eating faces thing, despite the danger of them being misidentified and deported, there are people of faith, and you know which party has the lock on that? The Republican Party. You know which party shows up and votes monolithically despite their internal disdain and dislike for a candidate? Republicans. The Dems eat their own. And I'm here to tell you that petty bullshit with ideological purity tests is what kills us every fucking time. You can't galvanize a voter base that sneers down its nose at anyone who isn't holier than thou. As an example, I get called a shitlib because I own guns and make no secret about the fact that you should too. I get called out if I say that despite the evidence of the economy being strong as hell, it doesn't matter to people in swing states where we can't afford groceries and gas. People are bitching about real issues, and the politicians who claim to have our backs are like, well, the numbers don't match, and what you should really be concerned about is the plight of the red-cockaded woodpecker as an endangered species or some other bullshit that doesn't fucking matter to the ever-increasing lower-class citizens. The two biggest issues to the American voters in 2024 were the economy and the border. And you can sit there on your keyboard typing all the factual data that you want, telling people that they're wrong, but we live in the 21st century America, and the facts don't fucking matter. Clearly. So don't fucking tell people, well, the data says that you're wrong, without telling them that there's still a problem and you're going to do something about it. To an extent, the Harris and Walz campaign did try to talk about it, but they didn't talk about it often enough and loudly enough. And those two issues convinced conservatives who hate Trump to vote for him anyway because he was the guy who pointed it out more frequently and more loudly than the Democrats, despite the fact that he's a traitor, an incompetent idiot, and a rapey felon. And I realize that I'm risking a lot of people unsubscribing and unfollowing just because I'm talking about snooty liberals. And listen, if that doesn't fit you, then obviously it doesn't apply to you. But if it does fit you, then maybe fucking examine why your beliefs are a problem. I realize that that's not what you want to hear, given the fact that we just got rat fucked at the polls, but we have to examine what the fuck happened. And conspiracy theories aren't going to help anything. So let's start with ourselves and let's start with looking at the fucking party and how we can do better, how we should have done better. To be clear, I didn't think this shit was going to happen either. So hindsight is 2020, but there's so much data right now and everything is still so raw that we just don't know what specific things are going to come out of this. And for all we know, there might be some sort of fucking conspiracy theory at the bottom of this. And I also think it's stupid and short-sighted to just pretend that that's the real reason and not have a hard look at what else it could have been. So I really think that if there's even a fucking democracy to be had in 2 years, that it's going to come down to a lot of self-reflection, a lot of policing our own, and a lot of fucking demanding that the Democratic Party, which right now is the only other major option that we have to combat what's going to happen to us in 4 years, is the only viable choice. The Democratic Party and its voter base need to figure out how to capture that magic that the GOP has, how to get people to vote whatever the party says, even if they hate that candidate. It needs to understand the things that the American voter cares about, whether they believe it or not. Kamala Harris did a good job at reaching across the aisle and try to bring in people of faith and conservatives who are increasingly becoming centrist by simple fact of the Reich wing going even further Reich. And that should have been the game plan since 2020. What we also should have done was immediately put the fucking screws to Donald Trump in courts. We should have expanded the Supreme Court and put a bunch of liberals in there, and we should have busted Alito and Thomas for being fascist partisan cronies who take bribes. Instead, we sat on our ass until it was time to start talking about re-election, and we had Joe Biden relentlessly interrogated by the media about his senility, Democrat politicians who didn't push back and call out the media for their double standard at sane-washing Trump. And I'm going to be honest with you, America, for all the good that Joe Biden did in his one term, all of Dark Brandon zingers that came about, he shouldn't have run in the first place. I say all of that to, again, underscore the point that unless there's a widespread conspiracy, and I don't think that there is, Donald Trump won the popular vote. And that stinks to high heavens, but ultimately, I think that's the reality. The GOP sucks, but at some point, we have to sit down and examine the other major party and figure out where did the wheels fall off of our ideological wagon. Because we might be fucked. Only time will tell. And presuming that we still have a democratic process in 2 years, we need to be in a position to retake the things that we can retake at the ballot box. And again, that's if we even have a democracy in 2 years. If you like our video content, then we'd appreciate it if you'd follow us on all of the other socials, whichever ones that you've got. Yes, we do have an OnlyFans. On YouTube and TikTok, we'd also appreciate it if you'd subscribe, like, and get notifications on our channel. It's a little bit of a different process on TikTok, but if you're on TikTok, then you already know that. You can help us extend our reach by sharing our video content on all of your socials. And you can help us beat the algorithm by leaving us at least 7 words in the comments. Why 7 words? I've said it so many times that if you haven't watched any of my other videos, then Go watch that and find the answer, because that's where I'm going to give it to you. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, then leave me a comment that says, I made it to the end of the video, Big Sarge. And as always, if anything that I said in my video upsets you or otherwise offended you, I don't care. I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to watch out for my people. You're either with me or not, but I'm going to stay on target. I'm going to keep the fire alive and do what I need to do to shelter the people that I love from the oppression that we can reliably expect. If that makes you mad, then maybe think about why that is. Hashtag not sorry, not sorry. 2 claps and a Rick. Buckle up, motherfuckers. It's about to get wild. Woo! And now it's time for the throw punch!